Okay, so
Travel Thursday.
every time.
Thursday.
Welcome back to the Quit Your Job, Travel the World podcast.
Travel Support
Travel
Thursday.
Support Thursday. So, between the two of us, we have quit our jobs to travel the world 5 total times, and it's a thing that we're like, pretty good at. I don't personally know anyone who's done it more than that. It's probably an unhealthy number, I would say at this point. And the whole point of this podcast is to go through all the nitty-gritty, every single thing from top to bottom that you would need to do to be able to quit your job to go and travel the world, no matter if it's just like a month or two here, or just to go 2 weeks, or maybe travel for a whole year around the entire world, going to like 5 or 7 continents, to be able to free up the time and get enough money together to be able to make a big dream like that happen. That's
Yeah.
all we're talking about on this podcast.
So last week we talked about how much it cost us to take a 1-year around the world trip. We went to Europe, to Southeast Asia, parts of East Asia, Australia. So how much, and if you haven't checked out that last podcast, check it out. We spent TLDR, $40,000 between the two of us.
Yeah. And updated to today, 2025, like we just ran these numbers. It's about $47,000 for 2 people to be able to travel the world to 5 different continents, changing like cities every like 5 or 6 days for an entire year, for 365 days.
But today, what we wanted to talk about is the real nitty-gritty, like the actual work that we did to get to that number, to save up for that entire trip, which
Yeah.
there are a lot of different ways, as it turns out, to make money. But there are a lot
And
of
even
things.
more ways to spend it,
Yeah.
which we had to shut that off was the first
So
part.
I don't even know where to begin, but this is one of my favorite topics to talk about because when we started selling things, when we started to streamline our purchases, when we started canceling subscriptions, it felt so good. Like
Yes.
we had a mission, we had a quest, we had one goal, but it also just felt like spring cleaning.
Yeah, but with our whole lives,
Yeah.
everything in our whole lives. So I think I want to give you like a picture first of where we were when we made the decision, right?
Okay.
Neither of us had any money saved up. We were spending effectively as much money as we had coming in.
We had stuff in retirement, like from our jobs, but that was like something that we were like, no, can't touch.
Yeah.
Cannot be used for this.
So we had no savings. We were starting at 0, which is a great position to be in, and a position that
Yes.
most people that we know are not in.
That's true.
Right now. Most people that we know are paying off student loans, which we've had friends who have come along on trips who have, big student loans, and it does weigh on them, but it is still possible. Or they had like a mortgage, or they had like, they had to take care of their parents, or a car loan, or all these other things. We were at 0. Absolute 0.
That's true.
No debt, which
We were at a
great
point
place to
where
be.
we were able to, we had already at that point paid off a lot of our student loans, all of our student loans. We paid off our car.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we both had jobs. We had one super cheap little blue car called Beeman that was like $4,000 that got us to and from work. And we were living in the Bay Area. We
Had a roommate.
Yeah, we had a roommate. It was just enough for us to be able to live in San Francisco at this time when everything was very expensive. And we decided at that point in time, we're going to save up about $35,000, $40,000 to be able to buy ourselves a year worth of Saturdays. And that was a really exciting and terrifying commitment to make. And most to all of our friends were both cheering us on and expected us to fail. And
I think just no one really had a clear concept of what that would look like.
Takes, yeah.
And I will say we were already pretty thrifty to begin with. That's always been true about us. I think it's one of our love languages.
For sure.
A good deal.
A good deal.
But I don't think in the same way that we couldn't really comprehend it for the first time, like, what does that mean? What does it mean to save up $35,000 for this 1-year trip?
Yep.
So let's start off with like what we had to do, what we had to get rid of.
Well, the first thing we had to do was just stop the financial bleeding. We didn't even know where all of our money was going. And maybe you're in the same boat right now where like paycheck comes in and then somehow it's all gone.
Yeah.
And you don't really know how.
You don't know. Yeah, it's true. You truly just have to understand how much is going to, because no one, why don't they teach this more in school or just anywhere? But when you get your first real job, you really don't. No one tells you how
No,
much
no.
goes to Social Security, how much goes to your health insurance, how much goes to taxes. So when you hear that big salary number, you're like, yeah, I'm doing good.
Yeah.
I'm doing well. And then suddenly half of it's gone.
Poof, gone.
So yeah, that was the first step, truly
First.
just knowing where your money was going and how much was your actual take home pay.
Yeah. So the thing that we did first, and this was like medium awkward, I would say at this point in time, is we set up at the time, this was called mint.com, and it's kind of like a dashboard for all your finances. This is gone now. It's been replaced by Copilot is our current favorite. We still use a tool to do this. Not like the Microsoft coding platform, but like the Copilot app that
Finance.
tracks all your finances. There's going to be a link down in the description. And we used that, and then we together, like we sat next to each other and we just added in all of our accounts, every single thing we could think of, even unearthing some accounts and some credit cards that we had forgotten about.
Like
Stu-
Banana Republic, well, that I opened somehow, and Express, the
Y-
fashion company. I don't even know
right.
if they still exist.
These like random things that we had, and we just took all of our finances and put them onto one big dashboard so that way we could both see, because we were both trying to like save up for this goal, and it was a way to keep each other honest about what we were spending. It was, and
And
then
I
we
think
both had logins to this one thing, and we could both see, oh, should Josh be spending $200 on a Nintendo Switch or whatever? I mean, it wasn't like we weren't like unkind to each other about it, but
no.
we just literally needed to know where the money was.
We just wanted to be aware. I think that was the first. I mean, I generally think that's the first step to anything is being aware.
Yep.
And I think we needed to be aware of where our money was going. I mean, we all know we have something that we signed up for, some subscription, some credit card that you signed up for that you're paying some annual fee to. You just don't even use it. You don't even know that you have it.
Yeah.
That was part of it. Like, what do we have and where is our money going?
Yeah, so we took like an hour to sign up for this thing, and what it does is it literally live syncs with all of your bank accounts, all your credit cards, all your investments, which at the time we didn't have that much, and all these other things in your world, your car mortgage or your like car insurance payment or anything else that you can find.
Yeah.
It'll live sync and pull all these transactions into one big spreadsheet, basically a pretty looking spreadsheet that keeps updating every single day to tell you where all your money's going. And we just paid attention to that. And every week on Sunday, we would sit down for an hour and we would just go over
What we spent our money.
what we had spent on for the past week.
And we made a rule. I think we made a rule that said, and we still do this to this day, anytime we spend over X amount of money, we wanted to talk about it first.
Yeah, exactly. For us, it's like $100. I think
Yeah.
that's the current rule. So anything over $100, we discuss it with each other. And I think just having that rule in place prevented any of those financial related disagreements that can come very frequently when you're like discussing anything monetary related with your partner.
Yeah.
And I think the most important thing for us was that we were both fully on board with making this thing happen. Whatever the goal was, we were both on board with like, we're going to do it as hard as we can.
Yep.
You know, we're both gonna make it, and we both kind of have the same outlook
Yeah.
of money. Is that like we don't really value the fancy stuff. We never
Yeah.
really have, but what we do value is experiences and being able to buy time back.
And being with people versus like things, buying things.
Yes.
So I think that was our first step is like seeing where our money went. So we wrote down everything, not just our accounts, but like where was our money actually like going? What things were we spending on a daily basis? So like one of the things that I had to unfortunately cut out, but like share was that, yeah, every time I went to Trader Joe's, I was buying 3 or 5 cards. The greeting cards, because they're great greeting cards. They're really cute. They're 99 cents. So in my head, that's like awesome. They're so affordable. And I just had stacks of greeting cards building up in my drawer.
Yeah.
But that was a thing I had to say, listen, I know this is a thing that I do.
Yeah.
I got to cut it.
Yeah, and we'd have these conversations, and they would all lead to like whenever one of us would like be like, "Why are you buying that?" It would always come. The conversations would always come to the same head of like when you're sitting on a beach in Thailand, sipping like a coconut whatever. Are you really going to be thinking about your postcards? Are you really going to be thinking about your air fryer? Are you really going to be thinking? And we kept every single time, and the answer was basically
Mostly
always
no.
no.
Yeah.
It was always no. We would never think about any of that
Yeah.
stuff. We'd never worry about it. And with each $100 more that we could save up, that was another Saturday that we bought ourselves
Yeah.
away. And breaking it down into that little chunk, oh, that made it just so satisfying every time we'd like kind of say no to somebody who invited us out to
Raise the
dinner.
money up.
Yeah. People would invite us out for dinner and we'd say no, and it would save us $100 because going out to eat is, I'm sure all of you know, is like, holy shit, expensive. And that was another day in Thailand,
Yes.
another day in Bali, or a flight to Japan, or it was,
What were the biggest things that we cut out, I think, in our lives
yeah.
that helped us reach this goal?
Subscriptions. I
Yeah.
had subscriptions to so much stuff that I had forgotten about
Yeah.
that I just totally cut out. Biggest example of this was I was overpaying for my cell phone bill. I downgraded to like the cheapest possible cell phone bill by like this weird company that I still I don't even know if they exist anymore,
You
but
also may not have had service for a little bit.
yeah. Yeah, there
I
were
don't
some
know if that was purposeful.
no, it was not, but I went from paying like $70 a month for
Yeah.
my like unlimited everything to $10 a month, which was totally
Yep.
plenty. That was a huge win. We took on a roommate, was for sure the biggest win, where all of a sudden our rent went from like 3,000 a month down to 1,000 a month, split
Also,
across the smaller place.
Grim's amazing.
Yeah, also the roommate that we got was the coolest. That was a huge win for us once we really like took a look at how much we were spending on rent, and if we could save like $1,500 or $2,000 per month, which was the case for us, that would mean just if that's the only thing we changed, we would be able to travel for 6 months. We would have saved up $24,000 just doing that in a year.
Yeah.
And that was a huge shift for us.
I mean, this was a little bit hard, but we also cut out a lot of the experiences and the lifestyle things that we were doing on the regular with friends in the Bay Area, which meant going out for drinks, going out for happy hour, going out for, meals. Instead, we just started inviting people over for dinner. We'd cook and make big fancy meals at
Yeah.
home. We'd have more parties at home. We cooked way more. We basically only shopped at Costco in bulk and meal prepped.
Yep.
So we would eat like our own meals versus, going out to eat. That was a big deal. I think we saved a lot of money there.
Yeah.
$5 rotisserie chickens goes a long way, gotta
'Cause
say.
we were bleeding out like $500 a month on just eating out with friends easily. It was all these little things. It was like death by 1,000 cuts. It was the best way I can describe it, is that we just didn't know. We genuinely did not know how much we were spending on all these little things all the time until we really took inventory of it and really just decided what was important and what wasn't.
So after taking a hard look at every single purchase that we were making and making adjustments there, right? Getting rid of the subscriptions, getting rid of the excess, the things that we just absolutely didn't need and making adjustments there, then we also started thinking about, okay, how do we make more money?
Yes.
So one of the things that I think during this time, I actually transitioned to a new job, which paid more, which was awesome. It was also much closer to home, so I didn't have to pay for transportation back and forth,
Yeah, the gas
like
truck.
Ubers, Lyft, and going into the city in and out. I think you asked for a raise, which I think you were able to secure.
Yeah, so I like built this case of like why should like basically why should the company that I was working for give me a raise,
Mhm.
and just asked my boss basically like what would I need to do to be able to make X amount of money, which was more money than I was making at the time. And we just came to a plan together of like,
Yeah.
here's the new responsibilities you're going to need to have, and here's the higher output you're going to need to have, and the more things you're going to need to know, and the higher skill set you're going to need. I'm like, okay. I spent a couple of months just doing all of that as hard as I possibly could. And then about like, I think it was like 6 months after I came up with that plan, I had done all of it and I just asked for the raise. And that definitely got us there a lot quicker.
Yeah, we started
Yeah.
selling a lot of
We started
things.
selling
I
it.
mean, there are so many ways to make money out there. I'm sure you guys all know, but I mean, Facebook Marketplace, I don't think it existed at that time. It was something else. It was like OfferUp.
Oh,
OfferUp was the
so-
thing that we were using a lot of. And we were just selling all of the excess that we had, things that we didn't need. And then we started selling stuff we had. And then we got the idea that we could buy stuff at a cheaper price flip it and
Yeah.
then sell it and make more money off of
Because
that. All
people
of
were
that.
so bad at taking pictures. So what we do is we'd like buy an old KitchenAid because KitchenAids like for some reason keep their value indefinitely.
Yeah.
And we bought an old KitchenAid that had bad pictures and we would
Clean it real
get it there,
well.
we'd
Yeah,
wipe it
clean it.
down, sell it for like $50 more than we
Yep.
bought it for 2 days later. And I would guess that somewhere between like 3 and $5,000 of our trip
Just selling
was
stuff.
just us buying and selling stuff.
Yeah.
You know, like a good like 1/8 of our total trip fund
Yeah.
was just doing that. It's this combination, right? Like the most important thing that you have to do is just understanding, like, we just needed to know where all of our money was going. That was the first big problem. And then we needed to decide what was actually important to us and cut out ruthlessly everything else. Had we had a car payment, basically no matter what, at that point we would have sold it, even if we were
Yeah.
underwater,
Yeah.
because that monthly payment and the fact that that asset is just losing value over time, just holding on to that car makes no sense. And we would have used that money. Let's say that we had, I don't know, like we had bought a Toyota Corolla and we were paying like $500 a month on it or whatever,
Yeah.
which is a pretty normal car payment for a pretty normal car. Even if we were 5,000 under on it and we lost that, I would have sold that day, bought us like a $4,000 beater of like a 10-year-old Toyota Corolla
Yep.
that's still running just fine, and just use the rest of that money instead of slowly bleeding out over time, that like $300, $500 plus the really expensive car insurance. And the fact that the assets devaluating over time drove me crazy. So I would have sold that car immediately, bought a much cheaper car, and then just saved the rest and put it into some sort of investment that was safe and would have grown over time
Yeah, I
instead of
think
holding on to this like safe car. I hate the idea.
I think the thing that we're trying to say is that we had to decide what was worth it for us.
Yes, and how
What
fast we want it to
what
go.
was valuable, what was not valuable, and cut the things that weren't valuable. It's gonna be different for so many people,
Yes.
right? Like, our friends would not understand why we wouldn't come out to happy hour,
Mhm.
or they didn't probably I don't know, I'd like to think that we threw some fun parties and we had some really nice fancy meals at our home, and we just preferred that
Yeah.
than going out and paying, $20 for a dish and then an extra $10 for tip afterwards.
Yeah, you are
But
trying to do something like exceptional in your life, so you have to be the exception.
the goal in this entire process was to just truly see for us what was more valuable and what was less valuable. And for us, it was more valuable for us to get rid of the things that we weren't using to try to make more money, to try to save more money, all for the larger and most valuable thing at the time, which was to save enough to take this trip.
Yep. Yep.
It's going to look different for so many people. Cars, some people like my mom likes shiny white cars for some reason.
Mhm.
And for some reason, white cars are more expensive than
They are.
the blue and the red and the orange cars that we looked at.
Yeah, they're like 20% more just for that color,
Yeah.
right? And it's everybody values things differently. At that point in time, the thing that we valued the most was buying our time back.
Yeah.
And we were willing to do just about anything to make that happen
Yeah.
as fast as we possibly could. And that involved, like we talked about before, asking for a raise, but also involved moving in with somebody else. But also we did it as hard as we possibly could because we were in a hurry.
Mhm.
And maybe you're not, maybe you're not in as much of a hurry and you're okay with like ramping it back 5 or 10% from what we were talking about, from like the thing that we're describing, which
I
was
think we were
just,
also just excited.
yeah, we were also really
I think
excited.
we love a good quest and love a good goal, and that was, like, a really fun, like, way to reach it. Just anything you could think of,
Hmm.
how do we save more money?
Okay, so thinking back to it, I think the 3 biggest unlocks that we had was 1, roommate. That saved us like $2,000 a month
Yeah.
right away. Number 2, cutting out basically everything that we didn't need
Yeah.
was number 2. That was the biggest thing. And then I think number 3 is setting up an automatic savings for the amount of money that we wanted to save each
Yeah.
month. So it never even hit our bank accounts.
Yeah.
We made this like little savings account, just called it like round the world trip fund.
The
And
dream is what we called it.
so all that we did is we like told our work, hey, like I want you, when you give me a paycheck, to send, let's say 40% of it here to this like round the world trip fund and the other 60% to go into my normal bank account where I'm going to pay off stuff. And changing that to where that money didn't even really make it into our, like, mindset, didn't even make it into our normal, like, checking accounts.
It we automated it so that way we never really had to think about. We just decided as soon as our paycheck came, a chunk of money would go into our long-term savings,
Mhm.
a chunk of money would go into our dream account, and then a chunk of money would go into our regular accounts where we were spending
Yeah.
on our everyday life things.
And I think the important thing was, like, knowing that we didn't have it, like,
Yeah.
knowing that we didn't have access to it and that a certain amount would just, like,
It was just
transparently
automatic.
move
Yeah.
into there, and no matter what was going on that month, we couldn't spend it, and that was, like, that was such a huge unlock, and I think for us made it a lot easier because our mindset over time changed from, like, we're the type of people that spend this amount per month to all of a sudden now we're the type of people that spend 40% less than that
Yeah.
because we just don't have that much money.
And it was more the automation that made it a lot easier
Yeah.
for me because then I never had to think about the like, "Oh, here's the thing that I have to physically, manually do now. Okay, take this amount, calculate it, put it into this account." It was just automatic, so we didn't even have to think about it.
Didn't even have to.
And then when you pop in and check your accounts, it was so much fun to see that number just rise.
Yes. So I think those were the biggest 3 things, and then I think the 4th one, like, right underneath that was the little side hustles that we came up with, and it was actually really fun to get rid of stuff and really fun to start up this, like, little eBay, Craigslist business off the side
I
of this
think
thing.
at one point I grabbed this old road bike from home that I hadn't used. I mean, at that point, I had it used for 10 years.
Mhm.
And I was like, "Oh, this is just sitting here in my parents' garage. I should grab it." And I remember just seeing what it would cost on eBay. I think I sold it for $500,
Yeah.
which was a huge deal, like, to me. Anyway, it was fun. It was fun to, like, take old things that people weren't using anymore. Like, going through my mom's garage is just a treasure trove.
Yeah.
So many things that she stores and keeps that she doesn't use. So I was just like, "Can I sell it for you?"
Yeah. So I think, like, the 3 steps to this are, 1, figure out where all of your money's going,
Yeah.
and then cut out everything. That's still part of number 1. Cut out everything that you don't need once you actually have good visibility into your money. And then number 2 is start figuring out ways for yourself to make more money, and you can use any of the examples that we just used, which is, like, those little side hustles that we started up and asking for a raise or maybe moving to a different job if you've been waiting to do that, or the other, like, 10 gajillion other ideas that I'm gonna put down in the description below for little side hustles that you can start basically tomorrow. Number 3 is making sure that the money that you're putting away to save for this round the world trip, you never see it. You never see it. It just transparently goes from your job into a bank account that you just totally forget about until it reaches that amount.
And I think another thing that we will talk about in next week's episode, which I think was super valuable and helpful to our trip, was credit card churning
Oh, yeah.
because that helped offset a ton of cost for our trip. And that was another whole savings game that we were playing on the side.
Yes.
We know that credit card churning and saving up miles is not a thing in every single country. We've heard that and we appreciate that. But that I think is a very valuable tool when you're planning a big trip like this.
It saved us tens of thousands of dollars over the past couple of years, and I think to not talk about it would be not giving you guys the full story of exactly how we made this thing happen. So, that is it for today's episode. That's all the stuff that we can think of that we did to be able to, like, cut back and start adding more money, and we're gonna go way, way more in depth into each of these individual topics as we're going. We're just kinda starting with this, like, broader overview. So, if there's anything in this that you feel like you missed or that you want us to go in more depth on, please write that down in the comments below. Ask those questions and we'll answer them. We'll answer them as soon as we can.
And if you have other side hustle ideas, feel free to leave them in the comments below because I love a good side hustle.
Yeah.
I'm currently getting into furniture flipping.
Yes. Has anybody ever started up like a successful Fiverr business? I'd love to hear about Fiverr, Upwork. I'd love to hear about those sort of things you can do from anywhere. Anyway, lots of fun ideas. We'll see you guys next week.
Toodles.
Bye.